Welcome back to SevereMMA. I'm Andy Stevenson, and today I'm joined by Oktagon English commentator Bryan Lacey, a man who's no stranger to the UK and Irish MMA scene. He's been around the block for a long time now. But Bryan, thanks for taking the time to speak to me today about Oktagon.
I appreciate it. I also like the fact that I've been around the block. That's nice. That's
long in the tooth.
Yeah, long in the tooth, wearing the scars, still kicking and still here, mate. Though it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. But also a very, very exciting time at the moment. I was saying to you before we started recording, and I'll admit to you now, I have not watched an Oktagon show yet. And I say yet very specifically because I'm fascinated by it. Having seen, you're obviously producing the Oktagon Hype series, which we'll talk about, but also just kind of seeing on social media the events that have taken place recently, where you have 20,000 people in Prague, you've got another 10,000 people in Frankfurt, and then this open air show where there's fireworks going off and a halftime show, and it just seems nuts to be honest. So I haven't watched any, but I'm all in, and I'm very intrigued by the promotion. What has it been like so far working with Oktagon and the shows that have been going on so far?
It's been glorious, mate. It's been one of these things where it's like a breath of fresh air because I didn't know anything about Oktagon like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that. Maybe 2 years ago, that recently, and I just kept seeing them pop up on my social media. And like you say, you see these events, they're huge events, they're big arenas, and the production's really good. But they kept popping in and out, and I didn't really know the fighters or anything like that, so I didn't really pay much heedance to it until Oktagon 15. And it was the Attila Vey versus Karlos Vemola, which is basically the biggest fighter in Slovakia taking on the biggest fighter in the Czech Republic. And Oktagon's home base is Slovakia and the Czech Republic. So this was the biggest by far. And they sold out 20,000 seats in the O2 Arena. That was the first time they'd ever done it. I watched it, and from then on, I kind of took notice because I thought, if that amount of people are checking into it, if the production looks that good, I'm mad on fighting. I'll watch anything. I've watched some very grainy videos of some terrible fights, and then when I see what is in front of me with Oktagon, I'm like, I should know more about this. So bit by bit, I kind of got into it, kind of started following it, saw the way that they produced and sort of pushed the fighters, and then eventually I kind of got the nerve up to send him a little message and say, look, it's all good, but I'm using Translate and I'm watching the videos with the thing. I said, any interest in spreading this towards more English speaking content? And that was it. We had a conversation, and the next thing I know, I'm in Prague and calling the show. It was great.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like 20,000 people. Most of our listeners and watchers are typically from Ireland and the UK. Like, to put into context, the Bellator Dublin shows are around 10,000 people, so it's double that. And those are always a crazy night of MMA. So 20,000 is just insane. What makes when you look at, say, European promotions, it's kind of hard to stand out to an extent. There's a lot of promotions out there at the moment. But it seems like Oktagon are kind of carving a path in European MMA as being unique, essentially. What makes them unique?
It's a great question. It's something that when I got out there and I started to talk to Pavel Neruda and Andrei Novotny, who are the owners, they described sort of the history and how it was built. And it started from like a reality TV show, Oktagon Challenge, which is very similar to The Ultimate Fighter, except they do these challenges as well, crazy, weird challenges that take the fighters outside their comfort zone. So it could be anything from learning how to cook in a high-end kitchen, learning how to dance and perform on stage, Bear Grylls style ones. We did one in Germany with the coaches where we gave them 1 hour to do write a 5-minute stand-up comedy routine, and then they performed it on the stage. So you get these bits where it's not all about just fighters getting ready for a fight. They drop their facade and they suddenly become them. Then you get the personalities, and from that they've tapped into the storytelling. And for me, it's a beautiful thing that they do, because the arenas are great, the production's great, but what stands out a mile is when the fans have a favorite fighter, or there's somebody that they know something about. They might not have the best record, they might not be the best fighter, but the way that Oktagon tell the stories and really invest in taking the time to give that to the fans, that is what I think makes them a lot different. And it's not just a quick promo, it's not just a talking head where they go, this is where I've come from, this is my camp, this is who I train with. They dig deep into their life, why they're fighters, what makes them who they are, and from that, what you get is a really rich understanding of the people of these gladiators. And for me, it's my favorite bit, because it's, you want that for fighters, right? You know what they go through, you know how hard the road to compete is, and they get to walk out in these stadiums with real fans, people that know them and sort of invested in them, and that's what's given them such a strong, real good, solid fan base. And we talk about that 20,000 seater show that was back in 2017, 2018. They're now selling those out regularly. They've just done they did the O2 in Prague in May. That was 20,000 people. They went to Frankfurt in June. First time they've ever gone to Germany. They outsold the UFC. They hit just under 10,000 as complete sellout in the Festhalle in Frankfurt. We've just done 7,500 in the Stvanica, which is the outdoor arena. I think it's 13,000 in Brno, which is sold out. And they've announced the end of year show, which is kind of like their carnival, their festival. They call it the Circus. And that's at the O2. And I think they've sold over 50% of that. And there's not a fight announced. There's 20,000 seats to be sold. And I think they've almost sold half of them already, which is crazy, because people, they want to be there. They want to be part of it, because the tickets are that hot.
It's very impressive. Just to jump back, I know you've a background in stand-up comedy yourself. Which fighter was the best routine?
Do you know what? This is the maddest thing as well, because I'd had a chat with Pavel Neruda, and he was saying we come up with these challenges. We always try and be unique and do something different with each series. And I straight away said to him, you should get the fighters to do stand-up comedy. It was just an aside. It was a 5-minute conversation a year ago. About 9 months ago, he phoned me and he said, "What are you doing next week?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you're coming to Frankfurt to teach these fighters." I said, "Hang on a minute. We talked about it ages ago. I thought you'd forgotten about it."
Yeah.
He said, "Get on a plane, come over here." And luckily, I from my years doing comedy, I know a few comics in Germany, so I brought them in to make it a little bit easier, so they didn't have to do it in German. In English, they could do it in German. And we
A
had
crash course.
it was crazy though, because it was 10 o'clock in the morning in the red light district in Frankfurt, in a venue called Pick Dam, which is an old cabaret bar. And we had Stefan Putz, Christian Eklund on one side as the team, and then the Zavada brothers, David and Martin. And Martin Zavada is kind of like the cheeky one. Christian Eklund is always, giving it back. Putz is the guy that is so unique. You kind of find him intriguing when you speak to him. He's very, very unique personality. But David Zavada is kind of the quiet one, and he smashed it.
Really?
He
It's always the quiet ones.
it was crazy, because he stepped up on stage and he was first, and I was like, I can't believe they put David first, because he's the most mellow out of all of those personalities. And from the opening joke for 5 solid minutes, people were laughing and clapping, and he won the challenge. There's spoiler alert, but it was great.
And when they're going, obviously traveling around to you mentioned to Germany and other countries there, and still selling out, is it fans that are traveling from from Czech Republic and Slovakia, or is it kind of natives that are there? Was it full of German fans, or what was the split really?
So it was really full of German fans. We had some people traveled up. I think it's about a 7-hour drive from Prague to Frankfurt. And some people did make the drive. There are those hardcore fans. But again, what the Oktagon did before they did the show, they did the reality TV series. So then they introduced the fighters. Then they did lots of stuff on social media, lots of videos that they spread around, and it caught fire. It was great, because when they told me the venue that they were doing, obviously it's beautiful, the Festhalle. It's very iconic, lots of history there. It's massive. It's nearly 10,000 people to fill it. And I kind of thought, if they hit 5 or 6, that's a win, right? For most promotions, the first time they go into a new territory, trying to establish themselves, that's kind of a win. And it got to the fight week, and I think they'd sold about just under 8, maybe a bit less, 7.5, 8. And then that final week, they just all went out. Those last tickets started, and then you had people like literally begging to come to this event, and it was it was great because Germany is one of those countries that I think hasn't really taken to MMA. I don't know why. They've got great athletes. They've got, you know, they've got great gyms out there, but the shows have not really exploded. And when I saw Christian Ecklin's walkout for Oktagon 33, which if you want to jump back, you can watch them all on YouTube. Everyone was on their feet.
That's the one where the crowd are right in, you know, he's kind of walking out and the crowd are almost on top, right?
Yeah, and it was electrifying. It was absolutely electrifying, and it showed to me that it's a case the mainstream, as far as Germany, haven't quite accepted it, but the people kind of want it. And I think Oktagon, with the way they're doing it, and also some of the signings they've got over there, Hatif Moel, Stefan Putz, Christian Eckelin, Stoltz has just come back in. He's signed again for Oktagon. You've got they've got a real rich vein of German talent as well, which I think will see them well.
Yeah, you make a really great point about the storytelling aspect, and you know, I suppose building those connections with fighters, between fans and fighters. I can sit down and watch a fight, and you know, there are some fights that it could be just fighter A versus fighter B, and it could be a fantastic fight, and it could be amazing. But oftentimes, I find it's, unless I'm kind of invested in the fighters themselves as personalities, as human beings, really, it's a bit trickier to get invested in the fight in front of you, unless it's one of those barn burners. Is that what you're trying to do with Oktagon Hype? So the new video series that you're putting out for English speakers?
Yeah, so Oktagon Hype is pretty much, and I've used it, it's like a gateway drug. I'm trying to use it as, it's that thing of it's to give people a taste and a flavor of it, to introduce some of the people and personalities. So it's going to be a magazine show. It's going to have come out every 2 weeks. We're going to have guests from in and around Oktagon, some from further afield that maybe have got some Oktagon experience or have commentated on the shows before. And for me, it is kind of, I'm trying to build bridges bit by bit into the mainstream. Like you said, now you've seen kind of the quality of the shows and the production level that they do, and the Stvanica, where they did the halftime show, which was just the most electric atmosphere, from going from fights to this music thing, and then the lights and the crowd and the Mexican waves that just spontaneously kicked off. It's my way of trying to, and Oktagon's way of trying to, you know, just entice a few more people to slowly get involved with Oktagon, because they're all the commentaries in English now as well, so you can get all the fights in English. A lot of the promotional materials coming out in English as well, and it's going to be a big focus to make the push, because we want to come over here as well. We want to come to England. We want to come to Ireland. They've been very open that they're not looking to go out of Europe. They're not looking to try and conquer the world. They feel they understand the European market. They feel that they've got a good stronghold in Czech Republic and Slovakia. And they just want to build on that.
Yeah, I mean, the series was incredibly helpful for me to kind of understand, you know, what is going on, the various storylines within Oktagon. And I think it'll be great for, you know, translating essentially the story of Oktagon and the fighters to the English speaking audience. You mentioned there about wanting to expand. So I believe you were in London and Dublin recently discussing expansion plans. So can you give us any insight? You know, what are Oktagon looking to do in the UK and Irish market?
Yeah, well, they obviously they want to come here. They want to put Oktagon side by side with some of the biggest shows out there, which I think when you look at the markets in the UK and Ireland, you've got your PFLs, you've got your Bellators, you've got your UFCs, you've got your Cage Warriors, and they want to come over and they want to try and do it their way. So they want to do it with the reality TV show. We're talking about maybe possibly doing something like England versus Ireland, which exactly. Which is a kind of a mini exclusive, but that's the aim. They want to do everything, and they said to me, what should we do differently? And I said, whatever you've done here in the Czech Republic and Slovakia, you need to emulate it and do exactly the same. So they did that in Germany. The show went really well. The fights and the personalities that came out of it were great. And I said, you've got no idea what the crowds are like in Ireland. You have absolutely no idea what that rivalry will breed as far as the competition within the series and all those moments. And I think for them, they came over, they loved Dublin, absolutely loved Dublin. We were there on a Monday night. We went for some steak, came out of the restaurant, and there was a guy with his shirt off, absolutely covered in blood, trying to fight everybody, absolutely everybody. And
Jeez, what was Conor McGregor doing in Dublin?
I think he was in Ibiza at the time. But Andre just looked at me and went, "Is this Dublin every night?" I went, "No, this is Monday. You should see it Friday night. That's the night to catch it on." But then we went over. We went to SBG. We spoke to with John Kavanagh. We spoke to him because he brought Lucia Pudilova over to. He cornered her in Ostrava, I believe it was. And he said some really nice things about Oktagon and the way that they're doing stuff and looking after the fighters and that side of things. So hopefully the plan will be build some relationships, get some fighters signed, and then start with the reality TV show and build from there to live events.
Yeah, I mean that sounds amazing. So you obviously met with John and the guys at SPG. Did you meet with any other gyms, or was it just...
We've met? Yeah, we've talked to a few others as well. So trying to think. So yeah, in England we spoke to obviously Brad Pickett, Great Britain top team. Ashley Grimshaw was there. London Shoot Fighters as well. We've spoken to a few other managers in and around Ireland and the UK and England. So we're looking, and it's early stages, but we're going to be looking to try and sign some talent from across the board, and yeah, and try and get some names out to the shows. That would be great.
Yeah, that sounds great. And like, obviously we're kind of coming in from the Irish perspective here at SevereMMA. How soon do you think we will see Irish fighters begin to be signed to Oktagon?
I think really soon. So I've sort of, and I'll be absolutely open with because if we're looking to come and do live events by next year, then the groundwork's got to start this year before the end of the year. So we've got 5 more shows that will see us out of 2022. Then we'll start moving into the 2023. And I think we need to start signing fighters that can be on those shows. And there's some great events as well. We're going back to Frankfurt in October, October 15th. That's going to be at the Festhal again. We've got one in Ostrava, and again in Prague again at the O2. Those are both going to be 20,000 seater stadiums. And then we're in Brno for our next show, which is a part of the Czech Republic. And that's September 17th. So we've already talked to a few gyms and a few managers and a few fighters. It's just trying to get some matchups that we can start feeding that Irish blood into this European promotion.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, are you kind of looking across all weight classes when it comes to Irish fighters?
So yeah, without a doubt. Now with Oktagon again, because this is the mad thing as well. They've only been going from 2016, so their divisions aren't deep, hugely deep at the end of the spectrum. So they don't have a flyweight division, and their heavyweight division is still slowly filling up. You've got some good names in there, but when you're looking through bantamweight, featherweight, welterweight, middleweight, it's really strong divisions. And at the minute, we have brought some signings in. We've got some from Canada, some from America, Germany. But I keep saying to them, it's now time we start putting some Irish blood, some English blood, Scottish, Welsh into Oktagon. So my hope is that before the end of the year, we'll have some good Irish names that we can talk to you about and get into some and share some of the fights that they'll be part of. And then by next year, we can really start pushing to try and come over here and get these things happening, the series and the events.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great plan to kind of build them, you know, introduce the Irish fighters to the Oktagon audience, and then come back, fingers crossed, with a show next year. That reality TV show you were talking about there, would that be this year or would that be next year?
So that would be next year. So again,
Gotcha.
it's all building on it. To start with, we want to try and just integrate a little bit more into the vision of UK Irish audiences, because like you said, and it's a fair point. People they'll stumble on Oktagon, but they won't know what it is. The aim of doing Oktagon Hype, which is the magazine show, and then I'm doing another podcast, which is the MMA Pulse, is to start doing start giving some interviews, some highlights, some insight into who Oktagon are, and by way of that, hopefully draw a few more people in so we can start building on that base.
And would you be, I'm just going to keep on digging with these Irish questions, would you be looking at the 3 Arena? Would that be the stadium ideally?
So it's with Ireland, with Dublin, there's not really many other stadiums to go with. But if you look at what Oktagon do, and when they come to put on shows, the venue's super important. It's the Festhal wasn't one that it was the only ones to choose. They went there for a reason. It looks fantastic. It's iconic. Frankfurt had never had an MMA event before, and this is a place that it fitted because it looked great. There's stuff you can tell around. The same with when they do the Stranitza, the open air. It's not just about putting a show on. We're not just trying to fill seats. They want a spectacle. They want the arena to be part of the show. So yeah, when you look at it at the top level, it's kind of like you haven't got many options but the 3 arena. But we're going to have a little dig around, and we're going to see if there's anything else that we could maybe, you know, turn into.
Maybe with this this reality series and build a bit of hype and get into the Aviva Stadium, get some fireworks going, shooting out.
Could you imagine that?
Crow
Oh
Park
my
next.
God. Listen, could you imagine that? My family's all from my mum's family's all from Kells Bay down there, so Kerry. So they were well into the Gaelic football that's just been.
Yeah. 100%. I wanted to, one of the things, or the main guy that I'm just absolutely fascinated by is Karlos Vemola. Talk to me about this guy, because he seems like an absolute superstar, and I feel is really kind of flying under the radar of a lot of maybe the English speaking MMA audience. Obviously he had his time in the UFC and has since really rose to stardom in Oktagon, but he just seems like the craziest character I've ever seen.
Oh my goodness. So he's, if you don't know who Karlos Vemola is, Google him, because he's fascinating in every aspect, and he would be what I would consider like the Conor McGregor for Oktagon. He is the fight everybody wants. He has got this crazy life outside of fighting. So he has a place called Vermola land that he's built, and it is huge, and it's full of animals. So
does he own lions?
He owns, right, this is the funny thing. I talked to him, and so he went to a zoo, and they were went to a zoo, and there was lions there, and one of the lionesses was pregnant, and they said it's a shame because we have to kill the pups. And he said, no, don't do that. I'll take them. You don't kill the animals. I'll take it. So he took a lion, and they set up the whole cage. So it's huge. It's all been checked. But then there's a load of issues with people starting to protest outside of his house about this thing. So the government, or whoever it was, came and spoke to him and said, you can't have a lion. He said, if the law is, if you can't just have one. So we're going to have to take this one away. So he just got another one. So he ended up getting 2.
He just built his own zoo.
He built his own zoo, and honestly, like he helps lots with a animal charity over there in the Czech Republic. He's fascinated by this. He does all the work himself, as in like he looks after the animals, he cleans them out, he feeds them by hand. He's now got 3 lions. He's got 2 alligators in his front room. He's got a fish tank that has 2 sharks in it. He's got 2 sharks, wallabies, kangaroos. What else has he got?
He has monkeys as well, does he?
Monkeys as well, and he's got, and it's, but he's just fascinating. But he's genuinely obsessed by these animals, like looking after them and being part of them. And you see videos sometimes of him feeding the animals by hand, like sat next to the lion, like there while it's eating. And you go, it's
be sweating just watching the videos.
If you're Oktagon's promoters, you'll be sweating.
Yeah, I'd say so. And just how big a star is he in his home country?
He is possibly the biggest sporting star out there, possibly. There's a couple of footballers. There's Yuri Prohaska, who obviously has got the UFC work, but even Yuri's, if you're just talking about Czech Republic, Karlos Vemola, he's got his own reality TV show. He's got his own branded stuff of that you see people wearing. Like you go down the streets in Prague and you'll see them wearing the Karlos Vemola shirts and all the stuff that goes with it. He's huge, and he's somebody as well. And I got a lot of respect for him, because on the Oktagon Hype, we show a snippet of the interview, so it's like 12 minutes. But I spoke to him for a good half an hour, and he talks about Oktagon and how much it's helped him and how much he helps it. He said, I have no contract. He said, I'm here, and basically
no contract.
He doesn't. He said, I couldn't tell you what if we've ever signed a piece of paper. He said, I couldn't tell you how many fights I've got left. I couldn't tell you any of this stuff. He said, Oktagon is something that I feel is growing, and I want to be part of it. So if Andre and Pavel need me at any point for any fight, then I will. Then I'm there. And that for me shows like a loyalty as well, because he has been offered a lot of money to go to other promotions. But he's crazy, because last year, he was in November of last year, he got basically diagnosed with a really bad elbow injury, had surgery, and the surgery didn't go well. And the doctor basically told him, you shouldn't fight. You can't punch. You're grappling. You certainly shouldn't be grappling. And MMA should be a no. And so he went through all that, missed out on fighting for the middleweight title, went into recovery, and came back this year. He fought in May in boxing against the rapper from the Czech Republic, Marpo. Then he fought in Frankfurt. He finished Pasternak by head and arm triangle at a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And then he fought in the Stvanica just a few weeks ago and won the light heavyweight title. So from somebody being told their career is over, to fighting 3 times in 9 weeks, and within that claiming the light heavyweight title, that tells you a lot about where he's at mentally as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the sounds of it, he's eyeing up both the middleweight and the heavyweight champions, is he?
He wants, so he's got a bit of a beef with Patrick Kinsale. So they fought before. Vermola won, and he thinks that Kinsale, he doesn't really like him. That is genuine, some bad blood going on there. And then he said, because everybody thinks that I just pick opponents, he said I will challenge the biggest, the heaviest, the scariest dude in the whole roster for that vacant heavyweight title as well. It's a crazy mindset. And when I speak to all the coaches and trainers around him, it's weird because the story is consistent. He is the hardest worker in the gym. Like all this stuff, all the money, all the press, all the stuff that's going on, he's there first. He does more than anybody else. He works hard. He picks the hardest rounds. And when you add all that up onto the fact that he was told that this is almost all gone and this is taken away because of the elbow injury, it makes it even more impressive.
Yeah, you mentioned Patrick Kinsale there, and the next Oktagon event is going to be on Saturday, 17th September.
Yes.
Patrick Kinsale defending his middleweight title against Alex Lahore, who of course was a former BAMA welterweight champion. Tell us a little bit about that event and who else we should be looking out for.
Yeah, it's September 17th. It's in Brno, and that was the place where we kind of had our fight island during lockdown. So it means a lot to Oktagon to go back there and do a full show. So it's in a big arena. I think there's about 13,000 fans going to be there. Patrick Kinsale will take on Alex Lahore. Kinsale beat Parrot Kristofic, who's another character from the Oktagon roster. Real tough fighter. He was on the Oktagon Challenge series, made a name for himself. Not many people liked him on the show, and he's worked his way up, and he took the belt. But Kinsale destroyed him over 5 rounds, and they only got tied in the 5th, which is. But for the other 4 rounds, he put an absolute grappling clinic on Kristofic. Now he's taking on Alex Lahore, and Lahore is just like an enigma for me because he's one of these guys that he puts in these crazy performances in fights where you think he's going to struggle. And that's what makes it interesting. He took on another guy called Tato Primera. This was a welterweight a while ago. And Tato's really, durable, high-paced fighter, great grappling. And I thought that would be Lahore's issue. I thought that the pace would be an issue. I also thought the grappling. I didn't think he'd have much for Tato Primera. He absolutely, his scrambles were phenomenal. His footwork was great. He was so clever in the cage as well with what he was doing to deal with this bull-like opponent. So for me, when you look at this, it's Kinsale has got what you would think is the perfect blueprint for Lahore. He will be bigger. He's likely to be stronger. But Lahore is one of these fighters that makes stuff happen. And I think that's what makes it really interesting. And they're just now starting to get at each other on social media. So if you go and look at the Oktagon MMA Instagram, they've just started going at each other. And it's heating up nicely for what I think will be a nice return to Brno and like a very competitive middleweight contest.
And there's about a month to go still, so I'm sure it'll probably only heat up more. I'm excited to watch my first official for me Oktagon show now that I'm buying in. How can fans watch it, especially in the UK and Ireland?
Yeah, so if you go to oktagon.tv, it's basically like their version of Fight Pass. It's their own platform. Oktagon.tv, they've got other shows on there as well. They've got some phenomenal other promotions that you can sign up for if you want to do a monthly subscription, or if you just want the pay-per-views. I think it's €10.99 to watch the pay-per-view shows. If you wanted to tease yourself into it a little bit more, we put all the fights out all the fights out on YouTube about it's about a week, 10 days after the events. So if you wanted to go back and dip into that back catalogue and watch some of the shows, watch some of the fights, they're all on the YouTube channel. Oktagon Hype is on Oktagon UK and Ireland YouTube channel, and so will all the English fights. Well, so will all the fights with English commentary be.
Brilliant. Well, Brian, look, I really appreciate the time today. I love what you guys are doing over at Oktagon. Love the magazine show, Oktagon Hype. And I'm very, very excited to hear that there's some strong plans for the UK and Ireland, and especially Ireland from my perspective.
Yeah.
So hopefully we see some more Irish fighters, you know, or the first Irish fighters get signed to Oktagon soon. And maybe even that Irish versus English reality series, that could be
amazing,
some seriously good crack. So appreciate the time this evening. Thanks again, and I'm sure we'll be chatting again soon.
I appreciate your time as well, my friend. Have a good evening. Thanks.
You too.